I'll be honest, as a stand-up comedian, it's very rarely that I'm called to any event where I'm required to speak any sense. Right? Or in fact, for that matter, that I'm expected to speak any sense. Which is why speaking at TEDx today, in many ways, it's more meaningful than many so-called meaningful shows that I'm required to do. Like 2 weeks ago, I was in London. I was doing a show for this investment bank. They were doing a charity night to raise money for villages in India. And I thought, this is so stupid. Because 2 years ago, I was in a village in India, and they were doing a charity night to raise money for investment banks in London. But jokes apart, let me talk to you about something that I do know. And that is stand-up comedy. Stand-up comedy has changed my life. And I'm not talking just from a career point of view, from a personal point of view as well, as a human being. For the first time, I have been in a space, in a profession, where there are no rules. There is nobody saying this is what you can say, this is what you can't say, this is what you can do, this is what you can't do. For the first time, I've had to look inwards and ask myself, what is it that I find funny? What is it that I want to talk about? How do I really feel about things? And I'll be honest with you, it is the most exhilarating, liberating, and terrifying feeling ever to actually have to think for yourself when you've got so used to thinking on autopilot. Stand-up comedy is such a journey of self-discovery. You're forced to look inwards. You have no choice. They say that it takes you 10 years in comedy to find your own voice. I find that is true. With every single show, I'm putting just a little bit more of myself in that show. With every show, it's like one brick at a time. I'm taking away that wall that exists between the audience and me and allowing them to see the real me. So that's what my message to you is today. Don't change. Be yourself. Unchange. You've got to remove all that conditioning that you've been used to because of the environment. It happens to us all the time. I was living in London for a while. We were standing in a group once, and this one fellow cracked a joke in an Indian accent. After he left the group, one other guy asked me, he said, "Weren't you offended?" I said, "Why should I be offended? That was quite funny." He says, "No, but that was racist." I said, "Really?" I mean, in India, we have so many different communities. We're constantly making fun of each other, of the accents. I've never thought of it as racist. Was I being conditioned to be offended? Christmas Day, I was doing this workshop where we were sort of being motivated and being taught how to walk on glass and walk on burning coals. And after the 15-minute sort of pep talk, this coach said, "Okay, who wants to go first?" I thought people would hesitate. But there was one group of people who ran to the front to stand in line to walk on broken glass. It was the children. And that's when I thought about that fear is also a learned behavior. And I suppose speaking at TEDx, this is what I want to inspire you to do, to unlearn, to go back to being yourselves, the person you were when you were kids. I mean, I grew up, I had a very simple life. My father was from Delhi, my mom was from Bombay. They had an arranged marriage. My dad was a tea planter, so they went off to the tea gardens. And I mean, to explain to you how simple life was at that point, I remember we were on this flight once. He was in Assam, and you'll know this, in the early 80s, there was quite a bit of terrorism in those days. We were on this flight once. The aircraft goes to the end of the runway, stops, turns around, comes and parks in a secluded part of the airport. The pilot announces, "Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to request you to deplane the aircraft in an organized fashion. Please do not panic. We have received news that there is a bomb on the flight." Right? And Indians being Indians, and also the concept was so new, nobody moved. They literally had to be herded outside the aircraft. On the way out, people have stopped to ask the pilot, if the plane explodes, will we get a refund? Right? Now, because it was an Indian Airlines flight, a bureaucratic government organization, the pilot did not say, "You'll get a refund, please get out of the plane." He is calling up head office to find out. Right? Anyway, eventually everyone gets pushed outside the aircraft. They call up the police. Police says, "It's not our job." Call up the Air Force. Air Force says, "Not our job." Call up the bomb squad. The bomb squad sends 2 mechanics. These guys come, look at the plane from outside. Say, "Yeah, it doesn't look like anyone's tampered with it. You can go." True story, between 200 passengers and 2 pilots, they decided, listen, This is a 2-hour flight. If this plane is going to blow, it's going to blow in the next 2 hours. Why don't we just wait? That's what they did. 200 passengers sat there looking at this plane, waiting for it to explode. It didn't explode and off they went. Right? Right? Now, I'm not saying that's something that you should do now. But I think the lesson that I took away from that was that life sometimes isn't as complicated as we make it out to be. Eventually, my father got transferred to the head office in Calcutta. Now, I remember there was one year where a tea planter got kidnapped by one of the terrorists. And at the end of that financial year, in the accounts of the company, my father put down ransom money. It went into the P&L account, into the balance sheet. And sure enough, a few weeks later, the income tax department was there, saying, how can you put ransom to terrorists on your profit and loss account? And my dad said, well, that's the cost of doing business. If we don't reassure our planters that they will be safe, eventually everybody's going to leave. I think I got a lesson from that as well, which is that learn to be honest, no matter what the other people around you think. Now, of course, this honesty didn't really help my dad in his job. His job was a little unstable at that point, so I was shipped off to boarding school. And I learned a very important lesson there as well. We had this one teacher called Mr. Sybil. Now, Mr. Sybil was quite a forgetful chap, sort of spaced out. We used to call him Zap. One day, Zap went out of town to take his wife for a dental appointment. While he was away, these 4 boys broke into his house. They stole all his CDs, ate all his food, and went away feeling very happy. Mr. Sybil comes back very upset. My house has been burgled. But it turns out, he wasn't as zapped as we thought he was. The following day, he set an essay writing competition. The title of the essay was, The Mystery of the Robbery at Mr. Sybil's House. All these 4 boys wrote exactly the same story. Right? Of course, they got caught and got an absolute thrashing. And I asked one of these guys afterwards, I said, why did you write the truth? He said, brother, I thought we'll get full marks. Right? So I think the lesson there was that sometimes if there is a harmless truth, you might want to keep it to yourself. Of course, I finished school, I did my college in Delhi. I went to Oxford to do an MBA. And while I was doing that MBA, I spent more time doing job applications than studying anything. Because I knew if I came back to India, it would take me 30 years to pay back that loan. Yeah? Eventually, I got a job as a management consultant. And for 4 years, I stabbed myself in my soul. After which, I took a year off. And in that year off, I saw somebody doing stand-up comedy. And I thought, wow, if you can make a living doing this, why would I be in an office? So I chucked up my job. 3 months later, I was on stage. It has been such a journey of self-discovery doing stand-up comedy. I have learned so much. I've learned that in most cases, humor can get you much further than anger or any form of argument. I remember I was in a car with 4 comedians once in London. About 3 o'clock in the morning, they were under the influence of alcohol and mistakenly drove into a one-way street the other way. The cops pulled us over, tested the driver. He was above the limit. Now, the law in the UK says you've got to test the driver at the car and then test him at the police station once again. So all of us got into the cop van. On the way, we started talking to the police. They turned out to be from Scotland. We spoke about the Edinburgh Festival. We said, listen, we're comedians. It's a Thursday night. We're encouraging the audience to drink. We have to have a drink ourselves. To cut a long story short, we ended up performing for the police in the police station from 4 a.m. to 6 a.m. At 6:30, all this while, they got the driver something to eat. They got him something to drink. They let him go to the bathroom. They checked him again at 6:30 in the morning. He was below the limit. Sorry to trouble you, sir. That machine must have been faulty. You're free to go. Yeah? What I'm saying is I don't condone drunken driving, but I am saying this, be aware of the power of humor. The other thing I've learned about myself is that I'm very proud of my roots. I'm very proud of being Indian. I remember I was doing this TV show in the US called Last Comic Standing. And all the American comedians, once a bunch of them got to me and they said, this must be a very big opportunity for you. 10 million people watch this program. I was like, well, to be honest, I come from India. If I open my bathroom window, 10 million people will show up live. Right? And I found that no matter what your circumstances, it helps if you look at them from a positive angle, to view them positively. I was living in London when this whole Big Brother, that reality TV show thing happened with Shilpa Shetty and Jade Goody, Indian actress, and there was these racism allegations. And people kept asking me as an Indian, oh, what do you think? What do you think? And I said, well, in India, 1 billion people know that Shilpa is definitely going to win. Because think about it, how do you win that show? Maximum number of votes. How do you vote? You call in. Who the hell do you think is answering those phone calls? Call centers in India. I'd like to vote for Jade, please. Shilpa. Huh? The other thing I've learned, one of the most important lessons, is that if you love what you do, you will get good at it. If you get good at it, the money will follow. The challenge lies in that phase between loving it and the money following. And even before that, what you have to do, you have to unchange yourself so you have the courage to follow your heart. You have to go back to being your true self. Even if you want to try something as out there as, speaking at a TEDx talk, when you know that you'll have only 4 hours to prepare for that talk. Right? I'll be honest, 4 hours ago is when I started preparing this talk. I was sitting on my desk and I thought to myself, you know what? This is supposed to be an intelligent talk. I am going to die. But then I thought about it. I thought about what I was talking about. And I said, you know what? I'm just going to be myself. I'm going to talk about the things that I believe in. And if I do that, I won't have to prepare. And besides, as a comedian, I don't want to die on stage. I want to die while having sex. Because they say that when you die, your entire body becomes stiff. So if I died while having sex, my tombstone will say, Papa CJ is still standing up. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to me. God bless you and have a good night. Thank you.